When Michael stepped out of the oncologist's office, he was already somewhere else. Not in the hallway, not in his body. Somewhere far away, where guilt can't reach and truth can't follow. Claire noticed the way he blinked slower than usual, the way his fingers twitched against the chair, searching for something to hold on to, but he wouldn't reach for her hand. He didn't look at her when the word lymphoma dropped like a gavel between them. The doctor spoke of treatments, stages, and survival rates. Clinical language. Detached. Claire took notes, nodded, memorized everything like a student before a life-altering exam. Her throat burned, but she didn't cry. Michael said only one thing the entire appointment. "So, how long if I don't treat it?" Claire flinched. The doctor paused, measured, then answered. Claire didn't write that part down. On the ride home, the silence was suffocating. The radio stayed off. Claire stared straight ahead while Michael looked out the passenger window like a child refusing to go home. It was cloudy. The world looked sick, too. That evening, Claire made lemon chicken, his favorite since college. She set the table with quiet care, even folded the napkins. He barely took 2 bites. He wasn't angry or emotional, just gone. Watching shadows stretch across the kitchen wall, saying nothing. Claire whispered, "We'll beat this, together." Michael nodded, but his eyes didn't believe it. In the days that followed, Claire transformed their home into a recovery nest. She printed chemo schedules, stocked ginger ale, crackers, heating pads, ordered soft blankets, unscented soaps, and anti-nausea meds. Every drawer in the house became a tool of war against cancer. She read forums, she joined support groups. She quit her job and told friends she couldn't go out for a while. She didn't want pity, she wanted precision. But Michael became a phantom, present in form, absent in soul. He started sleeping more, or pretending to. He stopped asking about her day. When she'd show him an article or a funny video to lighten the mood, he'd offer a tired smile and say, "That's nice." And sometimes he smiled at nothing. She caught him once in the hallway mirror, smiling at his phone with a softness he hadn't shown her in months. When she walked into the room, the phone disappeared into his pocket. "Who was that?" she asked gently. "It was work stuff. They're still bothering me about handovers." Claire nodded, but the lie was palpable. It sat in the room like secondhand smoke, unseen but choking. One night, after cleaning up another half-eaten dinner, Claire sat on the bathroom floor and wept quietly. Not because of the cancer, but because she felt like she was the one disappearing. She whispered, "Please don't leave me in this. I'm still here." But Michael didn't hear her. He was texting someone. At the hospital for his first chemo infusion, Claire held his hand through the IV insertion. His grip was weak. His eyes kept darting to the phone in his lap. She told herself it was work, or fear, or pain. She refused to believe it was detachment. In the waiting room while Michael was asleep during treatment, Claire watched a young woman sob on a call. "I don't know how to do this without him. I can't lose him." Claire looked away, ashamed, because deep down she envied the certainty in that woman's voice. That desperation meant connection. Claire realized she wasn't afraid of losing Michael to the disease. She was afraid she'd already lost him long before the diagnosis.
Chapter 2. Sleepless Nights. Claire stopped keeping track of time. Nights and days blended into the same gray fog. Her body obeyed an invisible script: wake before dawn, prep medications, check temperatures, drive Michael to appointments, make soft meals, try not to cry. Sleep became a stranger she no longer hoped to meet. Instead, she sat beside his bed in the dim light, watching his chest rise and fall like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Michael hardly spoke. Sometimes he groaned. Sometimes he asked for water. But most of the time, He simply scrolled through his phone or stared past her like she was made of smoke. Claire learned how to survive on silence. But silence has texture. It's not empty. It carries messages, unspoken ones that sink under the skin. And Claire felt it every night, that his silence was not just pain, it was distance, emotional, deliberate, cold. One night, after he fell asleep, she sat at the edge of their bed and stared at the text notifications lighting up his phone screen. She knew she shouldn't. She told herself, "You're exhausted, don't become paranoid." But when the name Emily appeared on the lock screen at 2:08 a.m., followed by, "I miss you, are you okay?" the air left her lungs. Emily. She didn't know the name. It wasn't a family member. It wasn't a coworker she remembered. But the tone, it was not professional. It was not platonic. Michael stirred. Claire quickly placed the phone back on the nightstand. The next morning she made his breakfast in silence. Oatmeal with almond butter and cinnamon, just how he used to like it. He didn't eat it. Instead, he said, "You don't have to hover over me, Claire. I'm not dying." She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. But something in her cracked. At the next chemo session, while he rested in the treatment chair, Claire walked outside for air. She paced the parking lot, holding his phone in her hand. Unlocked, no password. It was almost like he wanted her to look. The texts were all there. "Did you dream of me last night? I hate that she's always around you. I'd give anything to be the one holding your hand through this." Claire's fingers trembled. She scrolled further. Pictures, smiles, conversations going back months before the diagnosis, before the hospital, before the silence. This wasn't a moment of weakness during illness. This was betrayal rooted in health. That night, Claire didn't cry. She didn't confront him. She couldn't. Her rage was eclipsed by a quieter, more devastating emotion: erasure. She had poured herself into saving a man who had already chosen someone else in secret. And now she was merely the nurse, the placeholder, the tolerated presence. Michael noticed she was quieter than usual. "You okay?" he asked. Claire forced a smile. "Just tired." She watched him sleep that night, and for the first time, she didn't feel protective. She felt replaced. She thought of the woman who sent those texts, Emily. Somewhere out there, safe, untouched by nausea or night sweats, loving a man who was never fully hers to begin with, and still getting more of him than Claire had in months.
Chapter 3. The Message. Michael never noticed the shift in Claire's presence, not at first. She still prepared his meals, still carried the nausea meds in her purse, still drove him to every appointment, sat through every blood test, every scan, every tired shrug from a specialist. But something inside her had gone still. She no longer asked how he was feeling. She no longer tried to fill the space between them with soft words. She simply watched him text when he thought she wasn't looking, watched him smile at memories she wasn't part of, watched him flinch when she brushed his arm in bed. He was slowly recovering physically, but emotionally she was bleeding. One evening, while Michael slept after a long infusion, his phone buzzed again. Claire stood in the doorway, frozen. She knew the pattern now. Emily always texted late. She picked up the phone. "Emily, you looked so tired in that photo. Wish I could hold you tonight." Claire stared at the screen. A photo. Her breath caught. She opened the message thread fully. There it was, a selfie Michael had taken hours earlier, alone in the car, resting his head against the window, pale, tired, vulnerable.
The kind of picture one only sends to someone they trust deeply, someone who believes they are the most important person in the room. Claire wasn't in that room. She scrolled further. Old messages, months old. Emily, I can't wait until this is over. Maybe she'll finally let go. Michael, she won't. She thinks she's saving me. Emily, she's just playing wife, but she doesn't see you like I do. Claire sat down on the edge of the bathtub, the phone trembling in her lap. Playing wife. That was how they saw her. A role, a costume, not a person, not the woman who had carried him through the vomit, the fear, the sleepless nights. Not the woman who memorized the side effects of every medication, who spent hours in hospital parking lots praying to a God she wasn't even sure existed. She should have screamed, should have thrown the phone against the wall. But instead she sat in silence, trying to make the betrayal fit into the shape of her love. It didn't. The next morning, Michael noticed she didn't pack his usual snacks for the treatment. He frowned. You forget the protein bars? Claire shook her head. They're on the counter. Get them yourself. He looked at her. Really looked, as if seeing her irritation for the first time in months, but he said nothing. At the hospital, Claire stayed in the waiting room instead of sitting beside him. When the nurse asked if she was coming in, Claire smiled gently. He'll be fine. He's not alone. And for the first time, she meant it in a different way. Back home, while Michael rested, Claire made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. There was a power in knowing what he thought she didn't know. She began taking notes, dates, times, messages, patterns. She saved screenshots. She transferred files to a private folder. She backed up the conversations. Not for revenge, for clarity. Because something inside her had shifted from grief to something colder, more deliberate. If she was going to be erased from this story, she would at least leave with the truth in her hands. Chapter 4. The Other Woman. Claire had never believed in snooping. Not in the early days of their relationship. Not when Michael worked late nights. Not even when he began pulling away emotionally. She believed that love deserved trust, even when it was difficult. But now, trust had been replaced by something else. Clarity. And clarity demanded evidence. In the quiet hours of early morning, while Michael slept under the weight of fatigue and medication, Claire searched. The name was easy to find. Emily Hartman. Her profile was public. Her smile was wide. She looked younger than Claire, with highlighted hair, curated photos, and a feed full of brunches, beach selfies, and motivational quotes. Her caption under one photo read, "I just want something real." Claire stared at that line for a long time. Emily didn't look like the villain she expected. She didn't look cruel. She looked ordinary, soft, like someone who'd never cleaned vomit off the floor at 3 a.m. or sat through hours in emergency rooms while praying her partner would survive. But then again, Emily had never needed to. Claire found their connection quickly. Co-workers, same office, shared conference events. Claire remembered seeing her name once, briefly, in Michael's calendar last spring, a dinner with a client. He came home late that night, said traffic was brutal, said the meeting ran long. Now she could see the comments under those event photos. Emily, one of my favorite nights, you're magic. Michael, you always see me. Claire felt her throat tighten. She wasn't just dealing with an affair. She was dealing with a parallel relationship, one that grew quietly alongside hers, nourished by secrecy and emotional intimacy, while she carried the visible burden of Michael's illness. That afternoon, Claire left the house while Michael napped. She didn't say where she was going. He didn't ask. She drove across town to the office building where Emily worked. She sat in the parking lot, watching through the windshield as people came and went. And then at 5:17 p.m., she saw her. Emily. Real. Human. Laughing as she spoke to a coworker, holding a coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She wore a soft blue dress, comfortable heels. She didn't look like someone who was stealing anything. She looked like someone who believed she deserved what she had. Claire didn't approach her. She didn't scream or cry or demand explanations. She just watched, quietly, like an archaeologist observing a ruin still in use. Then she drove away. That evening, Michael noticed something had changed in Claire's gaze. He asked, "Are you okay?" Claire stared at him for a moment, then said, "Do you believe people deserve love even when they betray it?" Michael blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "Nothing," she said softly, "just thinking." She made dinner, ate in silence, washed the dishes while he rested on the couch. Her movements were precise, detached, almost gentle. Michael didn't ask again. Claire didn't confront him that night. She lay in bed beside him, staring at the ceiling, feeling the silence between them stretch wider than ever. She wasn't hurt anymore, not in the same way. She was past the begging stage, past the pleading, past the hope. She was studying him now, the way you study something you're about to walk away from. Not with hatred, but with acceptance. Acceptance that the man she had loved through sickness and sacrifice had never truly loved her back in the way she needed. He had chosen someone else, piece by piece, moment by moment. And now, she was choosing too.
Chapter 5. The Final Session. The last chemo session was different. Michael was stronger. His skin had more color. He was eating more, sleeping better. The doctors called it a positive response. The word remission had started to circle around conversations like a cautious hope. Claire smiled when they said it. She nodded when the nurse gave her the new schedule. She thanked the doctors politely. But inside, she felt nothing, because she knew the person she had become through his illness wasn't coming with her into whatever came next. They left the hospital in silence. Outside, it was drizzling. Claire drove. Michael didn't look at her. He scrolled his phone. Claire didn't ask who he was texting. She didn't need to. At home, she made him tea. They sat on the couch. A movie played in the background, something familiar they'd seen years ago, but neither of them really watched. Michael glanced at her. "So we made it." Claire nodded. "You did." He smiled faintly. "Couldn't have without you." There was a pause, a long, heavy pause. Then Claire said, without looking at him, "You lied to me." He froze. "I know about Emily," she continued. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad, just clear. "I've known for a while." Michael sat back, as if bracing for impact. "Claire," she raised a hand. "Don't explain. It doesn't matter." He blinked. "Of course it matters. I was confused. I was scared. I thought—" "You thought you were dying," she interrupted softly. "So you gave your heart to someone else before your body gave up on you." He looked away. Claire stood and walked to the window. "Do you know what the hardest part was?" He didn't answer. It wasn't the chemo, or the hospitals, or the fear. It was realizing that even in your weakest moment, you didn't choose me. She turned to him. "I chose you, every day, every drop of medication, every sleepless night. I carried your pain like it was sacred. And all the while, you were giving pieces of yourself to someone who wasn't even there. Michael's eyes were glassy now. Claire, I'm sorry. I believe you, but sorry isn't a cure. It's just a mirror, and I've seen enough. She walked to the bedroom. When she returned, she carried a packed bag. His voice cracked. You're leaving? No, she said. You are. He looked stunned. What? This was your recovery house. I built it for you. But I'm not going to keep living in a place that only existed because you were falling apart. She placed the bag near the door. You can stay at your brother's or Emily's or whoever makes you feel seen. He didn't move. Claire walked past him, opened the door. I forgive you, Michael. Not for you, for me. She didn't cry. She didn't slam the door. She just let it close behind him. 2 weeks later, Claire sat alone at the same hospital cafe where she once waited during his scans. She sipped black coffee, breathed deeply, felt sunlight through the window. No more alerts, no more updates, no more pretending. She had fought for two, and now, finally, she was choosing herself.
Claire's story is not just about betrayal or illness. It's about the quiet strength it takes to love deeply and the even greater courage needed to walk away when that love is not returned in truth. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about choosing peace over pain and knowing your worth even when the ones closest to you fail to see it. If Claire's journey touched you, if you've ever loved someone who wasn't fully there, or if you faced a betrayal that left you broken but determined, share your thoughts below. Your story matters. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that dig deep into the shadows of human connection, where forgiveness and betrayal collide. And if this story moved you, please like and share. It helps others find these truths too. Remember, healing begins when we face the hardest truths.